Okay. Okay. I don't know what your process is, so well, I guess there's no process.
There is no process, and that's what this is all about. Welcome to episode 5 of the Undoing Perfectionism podcast. I'm your host, James Hicks, and I have with me today the lovely Kristin Berardi. Hello. Welcome. I'm so excited for this chat. So, Kristin, let's start at the beginning of your creativity. I'm so keen to get into how you've become such an amazing singer. So, what was your first creative interest?
I have been told that I used to go to the piano a lot and plinkety plonk on that. And then I was also figuring out tunes from TV shows or ads and things like that. So I remember I don't know around, I'm sure it was a lot of plinking and plonking before tunes were, recognizable, but I do remember things like, figuring out the country practice theme and things like that, and Home and Away, and so music I think was my first in.
Yeah, it was just straight into it.
Yeah. And I think because my mum taught piano and organ at home, so that was like every afternoon. Kids would come, they'd be playing scales, they'd be playing a lot of the same material. So it was pretty normal to do that, I think. And then at 5 I started the violin, like getting lessons on the violin, because I remember seeing an orchestra on the TV, like on the ABC, and asking if I could play that. So music was definitely my first portal. But it was interesting, my mum was staying this last week, and my kids were drawing, because my kids are more into...
Like visual.
Yeah, visual art rather than music. And I haven't pushed the music thing on them because I didn't want to be one of those parents. But, and my mum looked at me and went, "You used to draw a lot, remember?" And I went, "Oh, like I did. I used to do cartoon kind of drawings, like in primary school years."
Yeah, okay.
I'd go and sit in on her band rehearsals, and I'd take my sketchbook and do little faces. And so it's interesting. I think that's always been my way of making sense of the world.
Yeah.
My little go-to for expression. Yeah.
Did you continue with the drawing, or was that only something in childhood, do you think?
Yeah, mainly in childhood. It was just fun, but music became, I guess because my mum was a music teacher, I then got into the routine or the structure of you practice and you get better, hopefully, and then you practice and you get better. And so I pursued music. So I did violin I studied violin, started doing grades. I guess up in Queensland, up north, there's not that much to do, and we didn't have, we lived a bit out of town, the nearest town was an hour away, so there
Mackay, was it?
Yeah. So we didn't, I didn't have anyone to play with, so I was just, I guess in that way exams were kind of good for that, like A&B exams. Gives you a goal, but also it's a little sterile, I guess,
Yeah. So you'd plinkety plonk on the piano, but then it was actually violin that you picked up.
Yeah.
Kind of as more of a practice.
Yes, so I started lessons with violin, and then I think a little bit later my mum started teaching me piano, which I enjoyed as well. So I kept those going, and then I got sick of the piano, it was too acoustic, so I moved over to the organ with all the cool beats that you can have. I don't know whether you've witnessed some of those there. Yeah, I didn't have many friends at school, you see. You say the word organ and people just go, hi.
Yeah.
No, it was fine. So yeah, I straddled those 3, and then piano became just something I did for fun, and organ and violin, classical violin was what I did. I started learning.
How old roughly do you reckon you were when you were doing classical violin?
So I started at 5. I'm not sure when I started exams though, but I started at 5 and just kept going. It was kind of similar to what you were saying before we started recording about your earrings. Like, it was just a part of me. You know? Like, it was just like, I play the violin.
Yes.
And then in year 7, so 12, I was like, I need a fun instrument. Isn't that terrible to say?
Right.
I need a fun instrument because these are too serious. I'll play the alto saxophone. So I started doing that. And all through this time, I didn't really listen to the music of these instruments that I was really playing, which was strange. So I listened a lot to music, but I listened to pop. Like, so I was listening to Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Tina Arena.
So how, as a child, learning violin and you're going for those goals of those levels, and you say you're not listening to the music I'm learning guitar, it was me always listening to a song and then wanting to play something like what I'm listening to. Was it literally just something out of a book that the book is saying learn this and then learn this and this, learn this, and then that will get you to that next level?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is strange. Like, what you were describing makes way more sense. You know what I mean? Like, there's a connection, like there's an emotional connection there, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, so you're like, I'd like to do this song, or I'd like to sound like that. So I had that all the time with voice. So I was in my room, I blast my music, and I was somewhere else, you know, like I was taken away by people's tone, or I was like, and I think too, whereas those other things, they were almost like a healthy habit in a way, like someone else would do, you know, a sport every Wednesday, you know, and then do the game on Saturday. That was my version of that, maybe. Like, I was getting skills in music. And I am grateful for that time, because as a singer and as a vocalist and now as a teacher, I do find a lot of singers who come, the ones who did learn how, like, some theory and how to read, and they can sight sing and things like that, or sight read music, it's easier for them in so many ways. Like, it's just a bit quicker.
Right.
For the ones who come into like a tertiary institution, or even just for lessons, like, you've just got to go about it a different way, you know? Whereas I think if you've had that structure of learning the theory, learning just how harmony works, all that sort of thing, you can kind of dive straight in with those students or those peers and talk on that level,
right?
Which is totally cool.
So it's just having another language.
Yes. Yeah, totally. So it was really
so what you were describing as the game, was the game part of your practice and play? Was the game part for you just when you got to go have that time by yourself, when you can just...
I think so.
Play,
yeah. So, and I think because I was just a good kid, you know, like, I just did what I was told. I was very compliant, pretty boring probably, you know, like... So yeah, my mum would say, you have to do practice every day, and I'd do practice every day. I mean, I went through a stage of I remember hiding behind the beanbag a few times and just going, I really don't want to practice. Oh, it's too late now? Oh, that's a shame. But for the most part, I guess, I understood on some level that I had these dang exams that I had to do. Yeah. And that was like a commitment in a way, and I had to be at a certain stage, and I was very perfectionistic as a young person. I didn't not expect myself to not get an A.
Right.
I don't know
and how did that go?
Where that came from, but that was just always in my makeup. I think it was probably in my makeup and also in my environment. My folks never overtly said that stuff, but I wanted to please everyone. So, and I...
Oh, so it was less... It was more for everyone else than for yourself.
Yes, I think so. Because even now, I struggle... I'm getting better at it. But I do struggle to celebrate my wins in a way, because I think part of me still just expects that. Like, I'm like, you have to be good. There's a part of me, you must be good. Be good. You know what that requires. Go do it. You know, which, you know.
And then you're like, there's just another level after this. So you've just got your next test after this one that you've just done. Right?
Fantastic. I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
She weeps. I think, I definitely, when I am sharing with people who want to learn about singing or connect more with singing in how they go about it, I try to encourage people to think about what the music means to them. So for me, I'm so hyper aware that music, it wasn't actually all the instruments that I did. It was actually me alone in my room putting on my little purple cassette tape player and being taken away. Like, I don't think I was particularly, like, it wasn't a particularly happy time or like safe. It didn't feel safe a lot of the time. So when I was alone in my room, I wasn't in the little town I lived in. I wasn't in my family. I don't know where I was, but I wasn't there. But I was in a really safe, amazing place. Yeah. And that has carried me through my whole life. And I think, you know, people, when I went to high school, I was keeping up with saxophone, violin, and I was starting to sing in choirs because I went into Mackay then for high school, and it was bigger and we had opportunities, and I joined the choir. And then at the end of year 8, I was asked to do a solo with the choir, and I thought, that's weird because I can sing in tune, but I don't have a special voice, you know. Like, I could think of about 5 people who I thought should have gotten chosen, you know, like, she's really loud, give it to her. I like her voice, it's kind of cool, but I found it strange that my teacher asked me, but I was like happy to do it. I questioned her about it because I was like, have you got this thrill, this Hardwick? Okay, cool.
Her name was Mrs. Hardwick? No way.
Yes.
It sounds fake. I'm sorry.
Navan. Well, I never called her that, but obviously. So yeah, and she was like, no, this is yours. So I sang Silent Night at this beach night, and I just sang, I guess what I think learning saxophone did and singing was for me was I knew that I didn't have to play the notes that were on the page. So everything was play the notes on the page and play them exactly this way, because this was written in the Romantic period. This is how a phrase is phrased.
And you knew this in high school? That's amazing. I'm like, damn, I need to get started.
But so I guess, saxophone was like, I was being exposed to jazz, and it's like, okay, so this is like, this is a lead sheet. This is what the composer intended, and then you do it with feeling. Like, you do it how you want the phrase to go, how you want the dynamics to go.
Now that I know how to do.
Yes, exactly. So, and the other one always felt I was detached from it somehow, because I loved the violin, I loved the sound, I loved the technical side of the violin. I loved practicing my scales, my tone. I loved practicing vibrato. The pieces, I loved practicing Bach. I still played a bit of Bach on the violin, but everything else I'm like, meh, it's not me, you know, like, and I guess because I didn't have that connection with that music, I didn't always listen to it. I'd listen to it to choose my exam pieces, and then I go, I don't like that one.
Yeah.
And then that was that, you
Yeah.
know? Whereas when I was singing along with these pop artists and soul artists, I think I didn't cognitively get it then. I didn't intellectually understand that they were messing around with the phrasing, but you feel it. So you I guess it for me it was like I'm allowed to do whatever I want with this song. I'm going to sing harmony here, and then I'm going to do the run that they do, but then I'm going to keep going down because I hear this other thing. And so when I sang, I was just naturally doing that thing that you were saying that you totally get.
Yeah.
You know?
So was that what happened when you did this first solo for the choir?
Yeah. Like I had a little solo bit, like I went Silent Night, blah, blah, blah. And then I had a little like ad-lib bit, but I didn't do the bits that were written to do. I was ad-libbing the ad-lib, you know?
Yeah.
And all these people came up to my folks afterwards. Did you know Kristin could sing like that? And my mum's going, what's going on? Like, I didn't know you could. How did you? And I'm like, I'm so confused by all of you right now. Because I just thought I sang in tune. I don't know. But I was also, I think, you know, I was a super shy kid. So like my whole high school sort of period, I was just trying to get the best marks that I could, even with the subjects that I hated, because that's what my brain has always told me to do. And I did more music, and I joined the stage band, so I was playing alto sax in it, and then the teacher heard me sing at something, and he was like, I want to start a jazz combo. And I was like, oh, jazz is for old people. I don't want to do that. That's so lame. It's like what my grandpa listens to, for real, you know. And he was like, you can sing in it. And I was like, oh, okay, deal. So we started doing this little combo, drums, bass, piano. I'd play alto, he played trumpet, I'd sing.
Was this towards the end of high school?
About year 10, so 15.
Yep.
And then we started doing gigs most weekends, like just
cool.
at functions and stuff.
Straight away.
Yeah, like we were all kind of good enough on our instruments, and then we were just playing at like rotary functions and you know, weddings and things like that. But it was really fun, and I was getting better at I was made to improvise, and I didn't like that, but they would just keep playing the song around and around until I damn well come in, you know, which is great because I was so shy, and that perfectionistic vibe is that you want to get everything totally correct, and improvising is like, well, here's a structure, now, you know, see what happens over that. And you're like, whoa, like in the moment.
So in that band you were only singing, or were you playing instruments as well?
Played some sax as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And I did find it easier to improvise with my voice than on saxophone. There was still this real clunkiness I found. I felt a disconnect, I think, with these instruments that I was playing.
Yeah. You felt more like stuck in scales or things like that, or shapes.
Yeah, and just it wasn't as fluid. I probably feel the most fluid with the piano. Like I still, like if I travel or if I'm touring, I will have to touch a piano at some point within a little bit, because I get a bit like, I get this twitch. No.
Still need the plinkety plonk.
Yes, I need some plinky. And yeah, it was really, he would make me this mixtape. So he would, and it was so great. Like, so I'd go home and I'd listen to all these, you know, jazz people and Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, and I was like, yeah, they're amazing. Like, but I didn't really understand that older voice, and I also didn't understand the music yet. Like I could appreciate that what they were doing was really cool, but it still sounded old to me. These songs I didn't connect with. They were talking, you know, we were doing things like Stompin' at the Savoy and Lullaby of Birdland and Take the A Train, all of which mean something to me now because I know some history around that whole genre. But at the time I was like, Take the A Train? Like, this is the corniest. What am I doing with my life? Like, you know, other people are going to parties and getting really wasted, and I'm learning Take the A Train. Like, what will I become? My parents were like gleefully, you know, praising the Lord, you know, that I wasn't. But anyway, but he made me this wine mixtape, and he put on some Vince Jones on there, and Vince Jones is an Aussie jazz singer. He's still around, and Vince was like, these recordings of him were like him in his 20s, maybe 30s, and he had some elements of soul. Like, he'd do some melismas and stuff in his takes on these same tunes. Maybe not Take the A Train, but like he'd be doing some of the same standards that I was listening to these other singers doing.
Yeah.
But he was adding his own little flavour to it, and I could hear, like you could tell he's listened to some soul music. And so then I was like, oh,
you can do that?
Yeah, totally. And then I was like, oh, if this is jazz, maybe I do like the jazz, you know. And so that kind of gave me an in, because I connected with his tone. First of all, he's a bit like Donny Hathaway in his tone and in his approach. A little bit like Chet Baker from the jazz world. But yeah, I guess, I went down this rabbit hole of like just binging on Vince Jones for ages, and that it gave me a context, I guess. It put it into a younger sounding thing for me.
Yeah, just made it more accessible.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I used to, I finally got, so we started doing more gigs, and I didn't know what I was doing with my instrument. Like, I was just singing. Like, I never thought to get singing lessons, because it's just, you sing, right? You don't, I was of that, and even my mum, you know, she was like, oh, you just go in the choir. That's what you do. But I was using my voice more, and we were doing these gigs every weekend, sometimes two, and I started getting really sore. Like, it was really painful during the gig. And then Miss Hardwick, noticed that I would lose my voice, and I was getting hoarse at school. And she said, Kristin, I don't want to alarm you, but I think you might have nodules, and I reckon you should go to an ENT and just suss it out. And so I went, and it was so terrifying. And I'm a wuss with all that sort of stuff. So they stick a camera through like your nasal cavity and check out what's going on your vocal folds. And I had the start of nodules like on my folds. Yeah. And he said they're the size of pinpricks. Yeah. And I was mortified. First of all, because I'd finally found this thing that I felt I could be myself in and express really freely. And also it was really freaky that they weren't even fully
like bad.
Like it was the start, and they were so small, and yet the pain was so intense. Wow. And so in those days, the treatment, so they suggested starting singing lessons, also going to speech pathology, because I was actually speaking incorrectly, unhealthily. Oh. So because I was so shy, I would speak like almost like a whisper.
Was it a lot of vocal fry?
Not so. A little bit of vocal fry.
Yeah.
But whispering's actually the most unhealthy thing you can do, because you're holding your folds are thin and stiff in there. You're holding them apart, and you've got loads of airflow coming through, so that dries them out as well.
Wow.
Whereas, but definitely the fry and glottals, like everything was like in my throat and contained and small. I was trying to not exist in so many ways. I'm like, I'm sorry for living. So yeah, I had to go to speech pathology, but they also suggested to be silent for 2 weeks. And that's when I realized I didn't mind not talking. That was fine with me. But it was then that I realized that I go to sing all the damn time. I'm humming, I'm singing, and so in a way, I really see that time, like that was like the worst thing that I'd ever done, you know, is get nodules on my forehead, like that was me being super naughty.
Right, yeah.
It's a terribly boring story.
You're out there getting standing ovations at like 15 years old. And you're like, oh, I've been bad because I'm singing so amazingly. Yeah.
But it was this gift in a way, because I don't think I realized what that gave me, or how much I tapped into that to give me some sense of peace or some sense of safety just in my regular life. So I remember just kind of like it dawning on me, like, holy crap, like I go to sing when I go to the bathroom, I go to sing when I go to make a sandwich, it's just, I'm wanting it all the time. And because, you know, like in my nature, like I work hard at things. So it was like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, you know, I diligently did my vocal exercises. I diligently learned about vocal health and things like that. And I diligently shut up for 2 weeks. But you know, it was a turning point for me where I was like, wow, I'm not going to take this thing for granted. When I sing, and I definitely, yeah, it was a shift for me. Like it was like, I cherish this thing. I'm so grateful for this thing. Kind of like, you know, what this year I think gifted or, you know, gave to a lot of people. Yeah. Perhaps that they hadn't noticed before. That like they were like, oh my gosh, I miss hugs. How amazing are hugs? Never knew it. Yeah. But holy crap, when they're gone, you're like, I just want to touch you right now, but I can't. You know. So I had that with singing. You know, at this young age, where I was like, holy crap, I will cherish this and put it on. I kind of I see it as like I place my connection and my gratitude to music and singing. I keep it really safe. I sort of, I don't know, when when I encourage my students, I say like put it on the mantelpiece or put it somewhere where it's safe. Like it can't be knocked over. Okay. And you keep dusting it off. Don't let things clutter it. You know, you need to keep it in view. And for me, I picture it on top of my piano. I don't know what this is, but I'm kind of making this ball-like thing, and I place it there.
Looks like invisible Play-Doh. Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't worry, listeners, we can't see it either. So what happened in the shift? So as far as... So I'm sure you spent a bit of time... you said you only just started the singing lessons because of that, but you'd been practicing and learning lots of violin and saxophone. Piano was more of just a play thing, and then voice was more of just a play thing as well. But you landed in the band. So after that, when you started taking lessons, was the shift partly kind of like, oh, I've had this process for violin and sax and see how that goes. Now I need to give that to the singing as well. And you were already singing incredibly. I'm sure all of the music lessons with the violin helped that. So did you immediately, or from that shift, what did you see differently happen with your vocals?
Well, I had some wins in my speaking voice. I started speaking healthily, but unfortunately, I didn't land on a teacher that she didn't. I still didn't understand the mechanics of the voice. So I had understood that I was using a lot of tension in my sound. I was going for a sound, and the sound that I wanted to be was like Lauryn Hill, you know, so like maybe 20 years older than me, amazing, you know, African American woman, you know, like that's what I was trying to get, and I'm this like 16-year-old white girl, you know, like just being like, hi, and I'm going, like so much external muscle tension, but I didn't. Yeah, unfortunately, my teacher didn't really explain it to me in a way that I understood, so we just were crossing paths.
Yeah.
So I interpreted what she was saying as, I'm singing too loud. So I started singing everything in an aspirate quality, so really breathy.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually, like what I was saying, like it's so unhealthy for you. It's the most tiring way you can sing, because you never allow your vocal folds to completely close and open again, which is what they're designed to do. You're always keeping them just a little bit, you know, ajar. And so you've got that, which is a lovely sound. I like it and I use it now, but
sparingly.
Yeah, I use it for effect and for colour. But what happened was, I guess, then I had 16, 17, 18, all those years I was just singing with this aspirate quality, and I didn't know how to control that. So
did you have the same teacher throughout that time?
For 2 of those years, and then I went to the con in Mackay, and because we didn't have a vocal jazz vocal coach, I had a guitarist teaching me for a bit, and then I had a musical theatre teacher teaching me for a bit. And so I used to get in trouble for not singing the musical theatre tunes correctly, because you're meant to sing what's on the page, but I'm going, but I feel back here again, you know, like I was like
back in the box.
But what happened was Irene Bartlett from Brisbane Con would come down like every 6 weeks or something. So she would come in and she'd give me some exercises and explain things. And I guess I felt comfortable to ask questions with her, and
you feel like you connected more with her as a teacher.
Yeah. And so I'd see some improvement. Like I was actually getting better with this instrument, like my voice as an instrument. But then I wouldn't see her for, 4 to 6 weeks, and so it was a frustrating time, because I was really musical and I had good ears. I don't know when it happened, but I had perfect pitch, so like, and I didn't know that everyone didn't have that, so like then people started like hitting poles and stuff and going, what's that now, Kristin? And I'm like, shut up, like,
you're like, I hate bees.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it was probably playing the violin from a young age and having to think, this is the D string, this is the G string, this is an A, this is a B, and making the tone myself, maybe, I don't know. So there was all that happening. I've lost where I was in the story, James. So Irene.
6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, yep.
So, and I started a double degree. Like even at that point, I was like, I felt so much guilt for my parents forking out all this money forever on instruments and lessons. And I was like, sorry guys, I'm just going to go with my larynx and my vocal folds, like, a bit of cartilage and a bit of muscle, I'm just going to do that. And like, I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. So I started a degree in classical violin, and jazz voice. And about 6 months in, my classical teacher, who's awesome, was like, Kristin, like, it's okay to not do everything the best. Like, it's okay if you want to choose voice. We all know that you love that. Like, we can see it, we can hear it. Like, why don't you just let yourself... And that was so awesome that she was real with me.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have just pushed myself through both those things so that I knew that I could do both the things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, for what? You know, really, I wasn't going to... I think at that point, I think I would have liked to maybe play in an orchestra. But I was so, like, shy. And that's the other thing, like, I was so shy in the jazz thing. Like, I just refused to talk between songs. Like, but luckily I was playing with lecturers or, you know, people that were older than me, so they'd kind of do the talk.
Take the MC part, yeah.
Yeah. And I could kind of just fade into the background a bit. But yeah, it was really... That's been something I've had to really work hard on too. Just like accepting that's part of the job. You know, part of the job is for me to also occasionally say something or show people who I am just as a person.
That's
not
singing. That's something else you kind of had to learn you didn't expect.
Yes, I fought it for a long time. I fought it even into, like, you know, my third year at the con. So I transferred from Mackay Con. Well, I got really sick, actually. I got really depressed because I was just used to pushing myself to such lengths and it kind of got a bit distorted, I think, in there. Like,
so had you stopped the violin?
No, I was still doing that.
Doing it.
And I got really depressed, and because I was trying to be perfect, I was wanting to be the best daughter and the perfect sister and the perfect friend and I couldn't, and I couldn't win that. I couldn't do enough, and I just got further and further into this cycle of really negative thinking, which I think was already crawling around in there. But again, like, I guess I was gifted that at a young age, and I got so bad that I was hospitalized for a time.
Oh my gosh.
So I went into hospital for like 3 months. And again, that part of me that wants that perfectionistic part, it had become really distorted, and I was warring against it, because it's like, well, people aren't perfect. Humans aren't. We all make mistakes. Like, that's what I teach my kids. Totally. Like, I'll say, I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't get bread, so we are having no bread this morning. We are having fruit and there's cereal, and they're like, that's okay, Mum. You know, we all forget sometimes, and I'm like, oh, damn.
Oh, yeah, damn, I taught them that.
Whoa, yay, thank you. Because even now, I'm like beating myself up about this. Oh, sorry, I'm late. And
Yeah.
It's like, and they'll remind me, like, it's like, oh, thank God I did one tiny little thing right in my life. No. But I was on this quest, you know, to just, it got quite distorted in that I just got so down about the fact that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't all of these things enough.
Was it something in your grade, like, were there some events in a row that like made you get to a point, or was it just always just internal dialogue?
I think a lot of internal dialogue.
Yeah.
And then,
So
which I didn't really notice, you know. And then I guess in that time in hospital, like, and these people are saying, you know, you're unwell, and this thinking isn't rational.
Yeah.
But you don't have to stay like this. And I was like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
And me being me, goody two shoes Kristin, like was like, so what are you saying? Like, I'm a piece of crap, and I don't see why I should, you know, be around, because this is just not good for anyone. And they're like, well, if you try what we're saying and you come to some groups and you start to talk about your feelings and you start to share, and you start to combat some of these, like we did cognitive behavior therapy in hospital, maybe you will see that this identity that you think is yours right now isn't actually yours. You know, like, you're a really caring person, we can see that, but you're not showing any care to you. You're putting everything out, and it was really interesting. Like, it became really my perfectionism. It went from like be the best, be better, and then I thought, to get better at music, to be a better friend, I thought I couldn't accept any good feedback in.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it wouldn't help me to keep pushing towards my goals. So I would deflect everything and counter it, and then it got to a point where I would counter what people would say to me,
if it
which
was
was
good.
Nice. Internally.
Did it work conversely? So when you received, if ever, negative feedback, did you take that as, and did you get energy from that?
Just to spiral myself further down.
Wow.
So then it just, and so that's when the kind of the self-loathing began, and that's when I got really sick. So yeah, like, I'm a real, you know, I have these sort of, I'm quite extreme, I guess, which is wonderful. It's such a gift, you know, it's amazing, because like I can feel really high, amazing things, but I can also feel all that low stuff. And but in that, you know, I was really blessed in that as a young person, I got to look at how I thought about everything. Like, I would
how you traverse all that.
Yeah. And I could deal with it in a safe and controlled way. And so, me being me, I was like, right, so I can either go down this path, which I was on, which, you know, I didn't want to live anymore. And so I was like, you can just stop thinking about it and just damn well do it, because you're not living. Or you can try this. You can try these things that these doctors and these nurses are saying. They've studied for years on this stuff. You could maybe put some trust in them and try it, and maybe you will be happy one day. And imagine that. And so, me being me, I went, okay, 100%. Well, not that it was just like a flicking the switch, but I gave it a damn good go, you know? And so, and I started to unpack all the stuff that I'd been pushing down, you know? And I think that's when I realized that's what music gave me. Music was my expression of all of that stuff that I never thought I was allowed to say or express in other ways.
Yeah, that's huge. Because, I always felt that was my guitar for me, processing all the things and all that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a gift. So, yeah, that was when...
That was like early 20s or late teens?
Yeah, so that was like 19. So I was an inpatient for a bit, and then I was an outpatient for a bit, and then I transferred to the Brisbane Con. And once again, I was like, wow, when I just before, like about a month before I started seeing in colour again. I'd be so depressed that I didn't realise, but everything was just in black and white, and I couldn't raise my head, and all of a sudden I was noticing colour, and I remember walking up to the stairs and just going, oh, I'm not taking this for granted, but also I can't work myself into the ground again, you know, which was hard for me, because that's when I started noticing it, like at the other conservatorium, like I used to make cards for people if I noticed that they weren't their usual self, or I'd go and get them something, or I'd do something, or I was able to notice people's moods and try and be just someone to bless their day. Or if I've always thought, if you think something nice, you should say it to someone, because they won't know otherwise, you know? And maybe something really shit's happened, or maybe everything's gone wrong that day, and you could just be this tiny little ding, you know, for them. And it's not about you, it's just about, I don't know, just trying to get through this crazy world, you know? But what had started to happen with all my focus and must practice for, you know, this many hours a day, and people would knock on the door, and I started getting resentful of that, you know? And
about being stopped, or
like I was like this, and then I'm going to have to make how many minutes am I going to have to make? I was getting really,
oh wow, that
sort of really, and so it's amazing. Like I see it as like this, that perfectionistic trait that I can have. I can, if I lasso it and I use it to do good stuff, like work on my thought patterns and challenge stuff that's like, would I ever speak to another human this way? Or even like someone I didn't like? No, I'm not going to do that. So why am I doing that to myself? Like, and like if I can use that same level of dedication to something for good, like, you know, I have to, but I do still struggle with that tendency when things are piling on and the world gets a virus, for example. You know, I can go into that thing of like, oh, you know, I can't, but I see it as something, I try to see it as something that I can use.
Yes.
But as long as I'm in the driver's seat, I guess.
So when it comes to your practice and using that energy specifically, how do you keep a healthy relationship with your practice now when you've had times when obviously you've been trying to get, you know, oh, I need to do 2 hours.
Yes.
And particularly having kids, like someone without kids, obviously the thought of having kids and trying to manage the amount of practice I do with my interest in that at the moment is just like absurd.
Yes.
You know,
I think that was a huge fear for me, and I think for a lot of people, you go, whoa, like how is this gonna go? Like I have to do this amount. I have to. Like I can't see how I can scale this down anymore. And then, well, for me anyway, I started. I had a little mantra that I would say when I started at the BrizzyCon, and I'd done some work on my shit, and try to having like a healthier relationship with my thoughts and my try to stay in line with how I'd like to live most of the time. And my mantra was, people are more important than things.
Okay.
And so that helped me a lot when I became a parent, because I did really struggle to be like, when do I sleep?
Yeah.
And can I sing?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's been 300 days. No, not 300 days. But it's this real time of like learning, not selflessness, I guess, because you have to be healthy yourself to give to another.
Yes.
But you start to really, because that child, I think, in that early time needs you, and you see how much they're just longing to engage, and they don't actually need a lot, but they want your closeness and they want your attention. That was actually so helpful in this wacky way. I thought I'd it's hard at times even now, like to be like, hey dudes, like I gotta do some practice because I have a gig, and if I suck on the gig, like that sucks for everyone. This is how I make us money. But in those formative years, it was just so clear to me that I had to put that human first. And I guess maybe it's almost an easier thing, I don't know, but for the mum, because they literally need you and they're so attached already to you. They've been in your body, and you're so attached to them as well. Like, I think it must, like, so there's this whole thing of like, I'd wake before, as a parent, you'll like wake before your kid wakes, and you're like, what the heck is this crazy voodoo, but you do feel this real connection if you're open to it, I think. So that allowed me to sit with this thing of like, well, this is my main gig now, and I still need to sing. And then I got to try and figure out how much I could do to get back in gig form for gigs, I think. So like when I was at Con and Brizzy, I did start getting tuition around my technique, and I spent the whole time there just focusing on that, because I wasn't in the driver's seat of my instrument, and so it took lots of hours of repetition and building that muscle memory. But then I think
so you'd done a lot of that work pre-kids, to then just be able to maintain yourself
I think
post-kids?
I think so. Like when you've had that sort of period of like real intensive practice, you kind of like, it'd be so amazing to just keep doing that, but you wouldn't live a life, like, I don't know, I used to just think, I don't know, I sometimes imagine what I'd be like as a musician if I'd just done that. Like I'd just stayed in my room and gone, and done gigs, toured, just did that and just focused completely on me. And I don't know whether I'd have a lot to sing about. I wouldn't have had to work on, I think, a lot of my social anxieties around so many things with other humans, like I've had to really, and still do, depending on the day. I think I've tried to allow that challenge, I guess, and here it is again, that challenge to teach me to trust. So in trusting that work that I did there, and then also getting to know, okay, so I'm the sort of person who will keep booking gigs, and because I need to sing. So I would still book things, or people would ask me, and I'd just say yes, and then go, oh gosh, like, I remember doing like one of the first gigs back when Ollie was a baby. No, it was Emily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was breastfeeding her backstage, and then my friend who was a bit younger than me, she was like, oh, I'll stay backstage with her. And I'm like, cool. And, you know, she should be fine, but I'll change her nappy. She did this projectile poo on me. And thankfully I was wearing this sort of meshy kind of skirt. So I was able to kind of wash it through. Like it was just... And then I had to just like zoom out, you know. It was just like, you know, just weird stuff like that.
That's dedication.
When you just go, if you had told me even 5 years ago that I didn't have to have like 2 hours of like, I'd have my preparation and then I'd center myself and then I'd, you know, go over my notes and I'd sing through the guide tones and then I'd go out on stage. If you told me that like I'd be getting shit off my clothes right up until the moment I was walking on and still be able to do the gig, like, and I guess, but I think that's what being in the moment is as well, isn't it? Like when you're on a gig and you're trying to be present, you know, you're trying to make music with other people, so you're having to listen, and maybe you've got in your mind what you'd like to do and you've practiced something that you know works, but then you hear something and you go, oh no, I'm gonna try and meet that person there and we're gonna make this music together, and when we do that, that's better, right? Like, and so I think that's what having kids and learning that balance again, like trying to trust that if I let go a bit of the control, because it really is just when that part of me wants, you know, I should have done 3 hours, you know, like I haven't done enough, or even when, you know, I feel like I'm not ticking enough boxes, or it's really just, I think that part of me that's like, I'm not enough, like I need to do more. I need to prove to myself that I'm worthy of your time, or worthy of you listening, or worthy. And it's like, I don't know, people I think people actually just want realness.
Yes. Yeah.
And we connect as humans through our vulnerability, not through our like awesomeness.
Yeah.
Like when someone lets you know that it's safe for you to crumble, and that they do as well, you're like, fucking high five. Like, it's just like, oh, can I say that word?
Yeah.
Like, like, oh no. We just...
Yeah, I'm demonetized.
But yeah, like even with things like that, I tried to do the right thing all my life. Like I started swearing when I was in my 30s, for crying out loud. Like it's just like I couldn't do enough, you know, and yeah, it's such a...
You've come a long way though.
Thanks. Yeah, you should... James can see how trashed my house is right now. But yeah, even things like that. Like I used to be very tidy. I used to be so... and I've had to learn to let a lot of things go. I think kids really help you with that because something has to give.
Yes.
You don't have enough hours in the day to cook all of your meals, to be a great friend to that person who's, you know, having a really hard time, to give your kids complete energy, to homeschool, to like something will have to give. Maybe, and for each individual, I guess you have an opportunity to figure out what it is you're willing to take that backseat. Is it, I'm not going to just, like I used to over-exercise, you know, at one point in my life, because that became a distraction as well. But now I do get annoyed at myself that I maybe exercise too little, but also, you know, like, yes, like Emily will come up and just poke, she's my 9-year-old, so she'll just like push my skin somewhere and it wobbles. She's like, yeah, it wobbles. Yes, Emily.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you again for putting me up like that. But yeah, I guess when I can lasso, when I feel like that part of me that wants to, I still want to be a great mum. I still want to be a great friend. I want to be a great musician. And when I can lasso those traits that get me to that, it works in my favor, because I've learnt more about balance than younger me. But, you know, yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's hard being human.
Yeah.
It's like you think you've learnt it, and you go, oh sweet, let's just keep going on this for a while, and then
something happens.
Yeah, or you just get in like this, I don't know, it's just this, I think it's probably just human nature maybe that our lives are so busy.
Yeah.
You know, or they have been. And if we don't take stock every now and then and go, oh, what is on my mantelpiece, you know? Oh, so now I'm doing that many hours a week of that many hours. Whoa, really? And like things like travel time this year, like I was like, when that went from my life, I was like...
Working from home, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Like I was meeting my brother at the park. We were taking our kids like a couple of times a week together. We had this extra couple of hours a day. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that that's where that went. Just in a train, in a car.
Yep. Speaking of time, we're going to be moving on to wrapping up.
Yes.
So in this move to using your energy to reframe practice in your current life with 2 kids, having had them for years now, how would you describe how you would frame those things for practice for people who, like myself, find difficult to find time to practice and plan and get all of things done?
Yes.
How would you what's some tips or that you would offer to manage that in the internal dialogue that's telling you, I need to practice this to get a song. I'm stuck on a song at the moment, and I'm beating myself up a little bit about not giving it the time and getting it happening.
Yeah. Well, I find with music, in terms of composition stuff, that's what I need to give it. I need to actually just give it time. So, because I don't seem to write, like some people have a real methodical kind of way about writing, but I seem to write, I sit down and I noodle. It goes back to that plinky plonk again. You know, like I just need to go, okay, I'm just sitting here for an hour, and if I have something to show for it at the end,
great. If not,
that's cool. I come back again tomorrow, or I come back on Wednesday, whatever it is for you. But for me, I think I gain comfort around, you know, having a plan that week and seeing, okay, because then I can combat those thoughts of, you're not doing enough. It's not happening enough and fast enough. You know, there should be more. And then I can combat those kind of thoughts with like, no, wait a minute. Look, it's happening Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and to be a present person. I need to pick up the kids here. My friend is in court this week. I need to support them. That's really important. Here's me. Back off. I've gotten better with, so that works for me. Like actually seeing it written down helps me. And I think
literally just put a calendar. Yeah.
Yes. That really helps me. And I think, and knowing, doing it regularly, I think. So even if you go, oh my gosh, I don't think this week I'm going to get more than an hour a day just for me. Maybe even not even like maybe it's half an hour. I would say take the half an hour and just try and be cool about that, and try to find be creative about the way you think about your time with music. So maybe it's just the dumbest week ever. And so then when you're in the car, you put on some music that you need to learn. Or, okay, I'm going to wake up an hour before on this day so that I feel prepared for that. Or so it's like you have to start to get to know, I guess, what are the things that really don't sit well with you. So is it that it might be time to practice that really stresses you out if you don't get that done. Or it might be time to listen to music. You realize actually that feeds my creativity. And when that doesn't come into my world, I'm not so stable. So maybe.
So it's a bit of self-learning to work out what works for you.
I think so. Yeah, I think you really have to sit with like, okay, well, I'm going to just try and do this amount of practice a day for 2 weeks. And how does that feel for me? Do I still feel completely inadequate, or do I feel good that I've come to my instrument every day, and I'm, because that's what I should say too.
Without an intention, for example, like just picking it up or just sitting at the piano.
For me, maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think if I have a really limited time, I'm coming to it with intention. Even if the intention, I guess, for like composition is I'm here and I'm being open to what I'm feeling, or I'm thinking about this scenario. I think there's a song in there, whereas usually for me, if I have a gig, so gigs for me are like deadlines.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of, I mean, I just need to do them, but I'm better with a deadline.
Right.
So I have those sort of things. Or so maybe if you know you're better with the deadline, you either go, I'm booking a band rehearsal, or I'm going to call that person I'd really like to collaborate with. I'm asking them to meet me in 2 months, and I'm just doing it. And you start giving yourself mini heart attacks, but you're also giving yourself like this deadline of, holy shit, I have to do a bit of work to get me there, because I don't want to look like a douche, when I rock up. And you're not going to look like a douche, but you know what I mean? You need to feel a little prepared. I've realized that in parent land, I don't get the listening to, like I used to actively listen, just sit and listen and focus. That's what I would do, and it was heaven. But now I don't get much me time. I'm getting better at holding my boundaries with my children, but I'm alone in the car, basically. So that's when I do a lot of my listening, which sounds ridiculous because I have to be focused on what's happening around me, but I don't know, I'm still feeding that part of me, and I have to be grateful for that. There's something that came to my mind. This is what also happens when you
deadlines.
And when I have a gig, I will have probably a bunch of songs that I really want to deeply know.
Okay.
So I will then start doing the process that I do to get inside the harmony better on my instrument. So I'll be doing bass notes and then singing. I want to do the thirds or the sevenths of the songs, so that when you know that time comes, so like maybe I start doing that a couple of months out, or if I don't have that time, it's a month out. I feel like I'm hearing this song and I know where it sits. Basically, I may not be able to tell you all the chords that are happening, but I hear the framework because I've had to sing the really important parts of the chords that tell me whether it's major or minor, or major or dominant, or minor 7. And then I've sort of got I feel like it's like a bit of a map. I've got that map. And so now I can kind of just like have a good time on my map and go exploring.
Yeah.
And that works for me really well.
So what happens? Do you have a how would I say, like an emergency, just a frame of mind, I guess, for when you don't get that practice in before a gig, or you know, having had the poo gig, knowing that those things happen sometimes. Nowadays, are you much less pressured by if that comes around?
Yes. So I think now I kind of know how to get like gig fit. Like if I know that this is here, so I'll literally, like, I still have a written diary because I remember things a bit better if I've written them down.
Yep.
So I will, in my diary, mark practice, which means practice every day, and maybe it's only an hour, but still I will give myself that time. Like, you know, I'm at a point now where my kids are going to school, so or at least if I'm also lucky that I teach, because that I have to be a certain level of fitness to be able to demonstrate to them what I'm trying to get them to do.
Yes.
So that's really awesome. I am grateful for that too. So I kind of know that, like, if, for example, if I've been in La La Land and I'm not being a particularly diligent musician, I know that 2 weeks out, if I'm coming to my instrument every day, I should get there. And I have to deal, but yeah, like, I'm not perfect, and I will have days where I'm like, I don't feel like it. I suck.
Yeah.
I don't really think I'm going to be ready. So I'm not even going to try. And so, like, I'll have a few days like that, and then I'm like, dude, you have to start now. And
it's the kind of thing, putting the deadline or having the deadline there puts you back into like high school cramming for an exam kind of.
Yeah. And then it's also like, well, you know what works for you now. Like, I know what works for me now, and so if I want to be better than that, I need to do that and go a week prior. And if I don't at least do this, I know I'm going to be a bit disappointed, because my instrument isn't going to be able to respond the way that, like, I will be hearing things and not being able to do them as easily, or I'm going to be getting fatigued on the gig. I know I will, because I've done this enough now. So it's like, Kristin, you know what worked.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to do it, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, and then I have to cop it. Like, I'll be on the gig and going,
see?
Told you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you know.
And you went and got a pastrami sandwich. You know, like, I mean, come on. You have time for that? But that's the thing. On the gig, I'm good with that stuff now. It's like in life that I get a bit flaky. Like, on the gig, I used to ruminate on every mistake I made, because I thought it was going to make me better quicker. I'm like, no, that was flat. Oh, you're saying the wrong word. Oh, everyone knows. And I would kind of sabotage it, for myself at least.
Yeah. Do you think doing that actually made your practice worse by doing that, or like now, can you like make a mistake and be like, have a bit of a fun with that and be like, oh, well, you just have a bit more like a sense with that. You know that if you've come up short with your practice, then that's why that's happening, and then you go, well, I know that I need to do that next time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think what it showed me too was when I do that on a gig. So when we're practicing, sure, that's the time to go, oh man, I'm so out today. Like, what's happening? Like, I really need. I'm not listening. I'm not. Oh, that I wasn't. My breath support's not happening. I'm going to try that a few times. I need to know. I'm going to try and do that 3 times, totally correct. That really difficult passage there, 3 times in a row, so that I know I can do it. So that tomorrow when I come to do it,
you've done it.
I know I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then if it doesn't happen, then I do that same process. And so I'm dealing because it's about physically doing it. It's about muscle memory, but it's psychological. Like if you don't do that side of the practice in your practice as well,
of just analyzing your own practice.
Yeah, I think that's the time to have those little chats with yourself. Okay. Is in your practice.
Yeah.
Where it's safe, where you can go, oh, bugger off. Like I've got this, or actually, yeah, I'm always flat on this bit. Why? Get curious, figure out some things, try some different things, and then tell yourself, okay, I've got to come back and do that again tomorrow, but I know I can do it. So you start building up your bank of like, I can do this thing, so that when you get in front of people and there's more at stake, and you know, someone might come in that you really respect, and you're like, and then it's like, oh, and there's, oh, cool, yeah, my old music teacher's in, great. Yeah. You know, your ability to take risks gets a little less, and you play it safe, and you play it safe, and you doubt it. But if you've tried in your practice time, you're like, no, I got this. It's cool. I've done, like, when I go up, when I'm on a gig, I pretend that I've got like this invisible backpack, and it's like all the evidence of all my practice.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I'm like, you know, like, it's really stylish. Like, I know you can't see it and everything, but it's really stylish. And so that when I go to that difficult passage that I proved to myself 5 days in a row that I could do, and it comes to that point in the song, I go, I got it.
Here it is in my backpack.
It's in my... I'm just going to get it out. Check this out. See? And then if it doesn't happen, because maybe it won't, I don't crumble now. Because when I do that on the gig, it takes me out of the present. And then I stop engaging with the people that have paid money to listen to me. And that doesn't serve anyone. Yeah. So I let it go, and then I know that it wasn't actually there. Or maybe I'm a human and I made a mistake, and that's okay too. You know? When I'm on the gig now, instead of beating myself up and losing the rest of a song, I used to lose a set.
Yeah,
I was so
because you hit a bum note.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then I got it down to a song, and I was like, come on, back up. Come on, we've got this. Now I have this little thing where because they still come, you know, like, you know, I'll be like, oh no, I don't remember the words. I'm really honest, actually. Maybe a bit too honest. I started this one song the other night, and I'm like, now singing the song that we just sang. And I was like, and now I make it. I'm a bit real, you know, with and maybe I don't know, like you can vouch, I'm sure, for the listeners. I'm not particularly slick as a person, but I'm sort of embracing that, I think, because that's not who I am. Like, look at my house. You know, like, I love colour, and I love...
It's a slinky.
Exactly. There's a fake apple and a slinky and a dragon. I love the kids' artwork around. I like that life... I think I've accepted that life and me, I'm not it's messy. Life is messy, and it was never, I don't know where we get those ideas from sometimes. Maybe school, you know, like you're sitting in these classrooms and you're all doing the same thing and you wear the same thing, and I don't know, and everyone's family is different, but you know, real life is messy. Sometimes you get a flat tire, sometimes you hit a bloody kangaroo on the way to school. You know, like shit happens, and it's okay, and we'll get through if we let each other know that it's okay.
Yeah.
If it's messy. I gotcha. You know, that sort of thing. Now in a gig, coming back to the singing thing, if I go da-da-da-da, and then it's like, I hope I don't do that, but like it's not particularly in tune, or I'm disappointed with what happened, or and that kind of voice of judgment kind of comes in, like there's that, and you know, that wasn't great. I kind of motion in my mind, I just motion it over to the side, and
I'll talk to you later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I imagine this really long wooden pew, like kind of to the right of me, and each of those things just gets to go and sit and wait. I'll deal with, I'll speak to you at the end of the gig, we can go through it all. You know, a lot of them don't stick around.
Yeah.
They're like, 3 hours, I don't know, I'm done.
They're impatient.
Yes. So actually, they're there to take you out of the now.
That's a great little technique, actually.
And the ones that stick around, then you work on that in your practice session. That's cool. Yeah. That's for your benefit. But the ones that don't stick around, I think they're probably just distractions. And that's that perfectionistic thing going, what was that, Kristin? It's rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay? Rubbish. What do you think you're doing? But it's like, but it's not rubbish. It's just happening in real time. And if it's happening in real time and you're present and you're playing from an emotional place, it can't be perfect. Surely. Yeah. Like emotions, whether they're like, you know, they're not contained. They're fluid, and I don't know, we're emotional beings. I think if this crazy year's taught us anything, it's that we need connection. We need one another.
So you're saying if we're in like this cookie cutter square, and you're trying to be real, particularly in like a live gig, you're trying to produce this square, but everybody really wants something that's not necessarily a square.
Totally. Like, I mean, I guess I'm, you know, and this is just my opinion, like I just have to go on what I engage with at a gig. So what I engage with, I want to feel something. So if someone could be completely incredible on their instrument, and doing everything by the book, and it's pretty, you know, perfect.
Yeah.
You know, but if it doesn't make me feel anything, I won't keep coming back.
Yeah.
And I've got friends who, you know, are in, like, just like we went through, like there were some people in our cohort who got so good at the technical side of their instruments, you know, and I was actually quite scared of that, I think, because I was worried that I would lose my emotional connection with it, because I heard so many people that you could tell their minds are on the technique, the technique of it all. And I was really worried, but I learnt to trust in the process then. I learnt to trust in That's why I practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I choose to keep practicing, because I do want to be good for the gig, but I want to let go on the gig.
Yeah.
And I can't let go and be open and vulnerable like I want to be if I haven't warmed up every day. Sometimes I will only get to warm up, James, I must admit.
Yeah.
Like sometimes in crazy teachy kiddie land, if I get to warm up and I'm teaching all day, I have to go, well, that's what happened today. And I just have to suck it up. It's just like, ah!
And just let it go.
But when I guess like that thing, because of my nature, like I used to get really fearful that I was going to get lazy or that I was going to lose my footing and get worse. I'm 39 now, and that hasn't happened. You know, I think you have to get to a point where you start to realize, okay, what is my nature? Like what have I seen consistently in my life? Okay, these are my tendencies. This can get a bit woo, and this can rein them in. And what am I? Like if some like it's kind of a cool thing. Like when you get really sick, people like write you cards and shit and tell you the good thing. I reckon we should do that, like just randomly for one another, because it's amazing what other people can see in you that maybe you can't.
Yeah.
People,
particularly when you feel not so good about yourself.
Yeah. Like someone earlier this year said to me, they didn't know me, and I was having a moment. And they said, I can see that you're a really strong person. And I was like fully public crying. So I've gone from non-expression to just, it's happening in the world, deal with it, because I can't. And so this person said that, and I went, I don't feel very strong. I'm sitting here crying. And they went, well, if you weren't strong, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. You probably wouldn't have replied, or you would have walked away. You know, and so that made me cry more, because that was a nothing to say. But
I think that's super lovely.
Yeah, and I think if we have to actively try and hold on to those things. Like we have to actively go, no, I'm not a lazy person. I don't just sit around and, you know, play with my kids' toys all day. I mean, sometimes. When I'm putting them away, we have a little giggle. But, do you know what I mean? Like, I think you have to be really honest with yourself. Like, what are my tendencies? What is my nature? And what do I know works for me? And start to trust yourself a bit, because, like, you've probably had a number of years already at going, well, actually, I am committed to this. This isn't like a flippant thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, I've had a recent good thing happen in terms of my career. And it's really interesting how some people who've been in my life are super shocked by this, because I think there's this, and for me, I've known this is a serious thing. Like, I take it really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that as my lassoing, you know, like that's my, come on, like, let's use this crazy ass stuff for good, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, let's get some shit done. But other people may not get that you want to spend your time devoting yourself to this creative process, and that's okay, but that's on their side of the street.
Yep.
And it was interesting for when this happened recently to me. I was like, wow, I wish I cared less about this, because I'm realizing
other people.
Yeah, like I had to sit with like, oh wow, I'm surprised at how much this is upsetting me, you know. Mm-hmm. And really, I take it seriously. That should be enough.
Yep. I
know what I do, and that should be enough.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
I think it's a good place to wrap up. Where can people find your music? Would you be happy to share your social medias or as well?
How do I do that, James? Tell me. I don't even know what that is.
So you can
how do I say that out loud?
You can just if you don't know what your URL is, I'll grab it off you and I'll pop it in the description for the podcast. But I know that you've got a bunch of albums with various different artists.
Yeah.
Where can they be found?
They most of my stuff is on Spotify. Most of my stuff is also on iTunes. I don't know whether people still use iTunes. I don't know. There's stuff on Bandcamp.
Cool.
There's a bunch of just live clips and stuff on YouTube as well.
Yep. Is that your own channel?
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
Just my name. For Facebook, it's my name, Kristin Berardi. For Instagram, it's KK Berardi. Yeah. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll grab them all off you anyway, and I'll chuck them in the description. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So many awesome takeaways, and I wish you luck in your next adventure.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and that's a wrap. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.